Hello and welcome to the Spark AR Studio introductory video. This is a little getting started and showing you the interface. So what I've already done is I've already downloaded the Spark AR Studio application, which is available from the Facebook's own developer website. And in order to use the software, I've had to make sure that I've got a Facebook account. So I've already signed in. So this is the screen you get when you've already downloaded the application and signed in. Important to note, at the moment the application is only available for Mac OS. However, there may be plans to bring it onto Windows. There's no guarantee on that. There is a companion application that's available for Android and iOS, so you can plug your phone into this, so you can actually preview your augmented reality pieces on your own mobile phone with the companion app plugged in via USB. So to get started with, I'm just going to use an example project just to sort of get you used to the interface. So I'm just going to simply click on the face mask effect for now, just to an easy go in. And I'm just going to make this full screen so we can just concentrate on the application itself. So once the application opens up, you'll be greeted with a view very similar to this, with two viewpoints. One showing the kind of everything within the scene view, so we've got a kind of green representation of our phone there, and this green square representing what it sees, which is also highlighted by this little view down here, which is a live preview of the phone's screen, for example. We can also change our view by adjusting the cue here, and we can also zoom in and out with our mouse wheel. If I right click, I can change my viewpoint by just simply doing it that way. But that's basically it in terms of the viewpoints. There isn't a huge amount to talk. You can also make them larger or smaller by just clicking on the little square up here. And again, if you bring on this little burger menu here, you've got the same options for changing your viewpoint. I'm just going to go through the tools at the top first. So up here at the top we have Insert. So if you click on Insert, this brings up a variety of prefab options that we can bring into our scene. So the good thing about this application is it includes some pre-built tracking systems. So for example, the AR Spark can basically has an inbuilt face tracker. So for example, this scene already has a face track, so you can see these glasses are being tracked when the face is moving and detected. There's also a hand tracker, so it can actually detect a single hand. It can only follow one hand, that's important to note, and the hand has to be very clearly in view, so it's not super refined. And there's also our plane tracker, which can be used to sort of place 3D objects onto a surface, or can also be, with a bit of adjustment, be used for image tracking, so it can track a photograph or a target. There's also some prefabs for 3D objects, facial meshes, planes, canvases, etc., etc., and some lights and particle systems and sound. We'll go through those in the other tutorials that are more defined to an end product, as it were. But for now, this is more of just an overview. Next up, we also have our AR library. So if you click on that, this will open up its little internal web browser where we can actually search for 3D models. So let's say I search for cat and let's see what it does. Okay, it appears my net's gone down, but basically this sources 3D sounds and 3D models and sounds from Sketchfab and Facebook's own repository. You may need a Sketchfab account to be able to download the AR models. Next to that, we have our controls. So, for example, if I click on these glasses here, you'll notice that I have this sort of 3-axis arrows here. So I have Y, I have X, and I have Z, which means I can basically click and drag one of these to manipulate it along that axis, like so. You can see it still tracks it in real time like there. Or I could go to the, so that's our move tool. Next to that we have our scale, or R, which again now changes these into scalable values. So I can drag one of these values and scale it. So I can make these glasses really tall, move them back into shots so we can see what we're doing, like so. So there we go. So as you can see, we can sort of start scanning things that way. Or next to that we have is our rotation tool. So I can also rotate my objects across the 3 axes, like so. Let me just undo all of that. There we go. Next to that we have our toggle between local and pivot. So global will basically rotate and scale in proportion to the entire scene, whereas local is only to itself. So the center point is to the middle of the object itself, not to the center of the scene. Same with the pivot point toggles between that. Again, we don't really need to play about those, but just to make you aware that they are there. Next along we have our video option, so we can actually change between some pre-established characters, so we can sort of see how it works without having the webcam plugged in if we wanted to. Or I can go onto our built-in camera here, so if I just press that for a second and just press allow, you can now see it's tracking me in real time. Obviously if I move my head too far it loses it, but you can sort of see it's fairly quick and fairly efficient. This is the same way that the Facebook Messenger and Snapchat filters work, and in fact you can actually use this to create filters for those services and deploy them, but that will be covered potentially in another video, or there's online documentation to that effect. And just turn to one of our prefabs. There we go. At any time I can also pause our animation, so I can actually start moving things around without moving in real time, so it makes it easier to adjust our position. I can also press restart to reset it to our first frame. Next along we have is our device type, so there is some prefab phones, so I can change the type, the size and ratio of our screen. You can also create custom sizes and so on and so on. Then we also have a viewport button, so if I click on a viewport we can change how many viewport windows we have. So at the moment we've got 2, but we can also change it to 3, or we can change it to 4, or so on and so on. But by default it tends to do 2, and it tends to do 2 side by side. Next to that we have a bug report, so if you encounter any bugs you can report to Facebook. Then we also have our mirror option. So if your mobile phone is plugged into your computer, you can actually, and you've got the Spark AR app installed and open at the time, and your phone, if you're an Android user, you might have to enable developer mode. But otherwise, if you plug your phone in, it will come up with an option saying allow, and then you can press mirror, and then it will basically allow you to use your phone's camera to do the tracking rather than the inbuilt webcam. And it gives you a more true representation of how the AR tracking will work in the real world. And then next to that we have our export, where you can actually export this and prepare this for online distribution. We won't be doing that in the tasks, but just to make you aware that that's what you can do if you want to do that in your own time. So next along we have is our scene. So this is on our scene tab. So everything that's within this panel here is within this scene here. So we obviously have a camera, which is what is our webcam in this case, or would be your phone's camera. And you'll notice there's a hierarchical system going on here. So everything that is related to the camera is basically parented to the camera. So focal distance is its way of gauging Z depth mainly, so it can work out roughly position based on a kind of a few algorithms. And there's also a scene light and an ambient light. And then down here is the important thing that we're going to be looking at, which is our face tracker. Now, what this is a prefab that is basically an algorithm that already works out the generic structure of a human face, and will basically can detect whether an eye is open, closed, mouth is open or closed, the rotation, the angle, the distance that a head is from the camera. All those parameters are being calculated in real time, which is why if you start to go too complicated, you'll find a bit of lag kind of happening. So within our example scene, we have some glasses which are childed to the parent, which is the face tracker in this case. So wherever the face tracker goes, which is basically like an invisible box, the glasses will follow. If I want to adjust anything, I can simply click it within my scene and I can adjust the values like so. And anything that is selected within my scene view will adjust the properties panel on this side. So you'll notice I've got the glasses selected here. I could adjust the position, scale, rotation with exact values if I knew what values I wanted. For some other pieces, you might also find you've got options for materials, so you could potentially change the sort of colour of your lenses or the material of your lenses, or create a new material, like so. And you've got some other values out here, like face head occluder. Again, you don't need to worry about that, but that's basically working out what is shown and what isn't shown around the head, and that's a prefab template within the face tracker. Something that is quite cool is the face mesh. Now, this face mesh is invisible, so it's occluded. But what this is doing is, if I actually just use this new material here for a second, and I just turn off these glasses, so I just toggle the visibility off, and I just move the face mesh forwards a bit. So what this face mesh is essentially the facial expressions are being warped and distorted to the model. So you'll notice that when she starts opening her mouth, the mouth stretches the mesh, the eyes will blink as the mesh blinks, and this is how essentially the Facebook filters work, in the sense of how it detects whether your mouth is open or closed, or whether an effect happens on X, Y, and Z value by the distortion of this mesh. Not going to go into super detail about that, but you can create some quite cool and nifty effects by doing so. In fact, if I go on to deformation here, I just toggle that button, and I could actually change my deform facial mesh if I had my own mask made. In properties, if I toggle eyes, I can actually have the eyes hollowed out, same with the mouth. So I could create this kind of masquerade mask style look. But I'm going to just revert this back to how it was. There we go. And turn the glasses back on. Just and pull my face mesh back. There we go. Like so. You'll also notice in this example scene we've got a second face tracker. I'm actually just going to delete that because we don't need that for the purposes of the overview. Down here we have a canvas. So this canvas gives us this kind of vignetting pink hue with this example, for example. So if I just actually adjust this like so, I could actually create some logos or iconography to go in there. So if I just click, I just go down here for a second, see if I've got something I can drag in. So if I could drag in one of my assets from my asset library, which is down here, and just drag that onto my should be able to drag that in. No, it's a texture file, that's why. I'm just going to import an image quickly. So let's import this one. Let's see how this goes. So yeah, at any point I can import images and assets into my folder. And we'll go through that more in detail in the step-by-step tutorials. Down here we also have a microphone, so you can actually use it to pick up your voice and play audio depending on your voice. We won't be going through that because it's a little bit more complicated, there's a lot more steps involved. but just to highlight that that is a functionality and a feature you could use in your own time if you want to expand on this application use. Next tab along is our layers. So this is our sort of how our layers are structured, our hierarchy. Again, anything that is at the top is at the forefront of our scene, as it were. It's very similar to Photoshop in that regard. So let's see, say I want to do some functionality. So what I would do is I could go into my face tracker and I go onto the properties here, which is actions, and I click on the plus. And what this does is it brings up a variety of prefab options or variables that basically are detected, and then we can tell it what to do when such an action occurs. So let's say I want it to, every time that the mouth opens, I want it to do something. So what this does is it creates what Facebook referred to as a patch. Now, what this is a very simple visual interface. So this represents, instead of having to manually code if this and that kind of style of coding, this basically gives you some prefabs of a simple drag and drop. So when the mouth is open, I can just simply click and drag on this little circle here. And once I let go, it brings up a list of potential interactions. So if when mouth is open, I could say I want it to pulse or I want it to loop an animation. But what I'm in fact going to get to do is every time the mouth opens, I want these glasses here to become visible or invisible. So the way I do that is I go onto my object, I pick the value I want to be adjusted, which is any of these values with a little dot next to, but I'm just going to go with visibility. I drag my visibility variable from my mouth open to the visibility, so I'll get sort of green arrow to indicate that it's going to go. And once I let go, there we go. So every time the mouth opens, it should now toggle the visibility. Let's see if this works. There we go. So every time the mouth is open, the glasses are visible. Simple, but this is sort of the kind of general way, and we'll go into this in more detail with the sort of more step-by-step guides, but I'm just sort of showing you a rough overview of the interface and some of the basics for now. And that's pretty much it. We can obviously save our file, and it'll save it as its own special format. We could also package it, so we could actually take this file and take it, and everything associated with it together and bring it onto another machine. And I can also make search for missing assets and update any assets that are missing, etc., etc. So that's a very quick overview of the Facebook AR Spark Studio, and I hope you find this useful. Thank you for watching.